If you're getting ready to start a new position as a BDO at a bank, your first 90 days is absolutely critical. This period really sets the tone for your entire tenure at the shop. And it's all about momentum. Okay, it's like a snowball. If you keep rolling it in the same direction, it's going to get bigger and bigger. Stick around and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do in your first 90 days to set yourself up for success. Here's a quote. Success requires first expending 10 units of effort to produce 1 unit of result. Your momentum will then produce 10 units of results with each unit of effort. That's a quote from Charles J. Givens. Who's Charles J. Givens, you ask? I don't know. So I Googled him just to make sure I wasn't quoting like a racist or a QAnon member or something like that. Turns out he wrote books about financial literacy in the 80s and 90s. I guess he could still technically be racist. So then I Googled, is Charles J. Givens racist? And nothing came up. So I think we're good. First of all, when you make a career decision like this, it's a chance to reinvent yourself. This is where personal branding comes in. You should really think about who you want to be in the business world and work on branding yourself accordingly. So your actions in these first 90 days should reinforce what you're trying to be to the market. Maybe you want to be the small business advocate. Maybe it's the M&A pro. Maybe you want to specialize in service-based businesses, or maybe specifically in manufacturing businesses. Niching down and staying true to that niche can be really powerful, especially if you aren't already established, because it's a way to cut into the market and differentiate yourself very strongly. So if you're a newbie just starting out, why would somebody do business with you over me, someone with a track record who's been doing it for 10 years? Really think about that, because you need a good answer for it. Once you have a general idea of how you want to present yourself to the market, I would make a big deal out of the announcement. Have some fun with it. These new job announcements on LinkedIn, they get a ton of eyeballs because LinkedIn actively pushes out those updates to everyone, so everyone's going to see it. So be ready and have a plan that allows you to capitalize on all those eyeballs coming to your page. When I joined Fundex, for example, I had a whole 10-day long campaign that drew all this attention to me and this big announcement. So use that to your advantage. All right, now it's day 1 on the job. You've got to hit the ground running. If there isn't a fire in your belly at this point, you may be in the wrong line of work. This is a very competitive business, and if there's one thing I know that all BDOs have in common, it's competitiveness. So before you start, maybe that weekend prior, there's a few things you're going to want to do to ensure you're ready to hit the ground running day 1. Number 1 is organize your database. I have my database broken down by referral source type: loan brokers, business brokers, bankers. I have a tab for preschool owners, and so on. Just to give you an idea, I have about 6,000 contacts in my database. And this database is basically the core of my business. So what I do is when I get that email, hey, Ray, I'd like to introduce you to this broker, boom. First thing I'm going to do is add them to my database so I don't forget. And I use an Excel spreadsheet, by the way, which is very simple. I also use CRM if the company is offering it, but the Excel is my backup. And I take that with me wherever I go. One caveat, if an SBA lender is referring me the deal, I do not add the broker to my database because I'm likely helping them on a one-off basis do a deal that they can't get approved at their shop. And I want that SBA lender to keep that broker relationship. So just want to mention that. So one more thing in terms of database management, and I did this when I was first starting out. I organized the database into A, B, and C for each referral source as a means of prioritizing them, because how you prioritize them determines how you follow up with them. Now, as you're cleaning up your database, you want to make note of the ones that are going to best receive your new value proposition. But before you can do that, you need to understand your value proposition. And I've talked about this countlessly on the podcast. Spoiler alert, I specialize in SBA, doesn't cut it anymore. We all specialize in SBA. 80% of 7A loans made last fiscal year were made by the top 200 most active SBA lenders in the country. You're also going to want to create your own copy beforehand. Email blasts are going to be going out. So think, what's your message going to be? And your message will be different based on who you're talking to. That's why the database is segmented. All right, so day 1 on the job, finally, your first task. Make sure everyone in your existing network that you want to keep knows where you are and understands what you do. And don't be afraid to lose the contacts that are a drain on your energy and your resources and your time. This is called trimming the fat. For example, I have a guy who's called me like 20 times. Can't remember what I do, and nothing that he's called me about has even been remotely gone anywhere. So don't be afraid to delete those types of contacts from your database when you move. And even if you're not moving, hand them off to a junior BDO, or just tell them, hey, look, this isn't working out. I think you'd be better suited going elsewhere. Trust me, I know it's hard for some people that are always too nice, like myself, but you've got to make those hard decisions sometimes. On the flip side, anyone you close a deal with, call them first. Now, in addition to cultivating your existing network, you also want to target brand new, high-value referral partners. The ones that are absolute no-brainers. Like for me, I didn't do much business acquisition before this, unless it involved real estate. So I wasn't really doing a lot of business with business brokers prior to FundX. So, I was mostly doing 7A and working with loan brokers, CRE brokers, that sort of thing. But once I came here and I figured out that business acquisitions were the bread and butter, I knew business brokers needed to be added into the mix. Now, it may take you 90 days to figure that out, figure out your credit box, figure out your value proposition, but we don't have 90 days to waste. We've got to build that pipeline and get some deals into the system. So I would do this my first week. I would call the top producing BDO at the organization and ask them one simple question. If you can only call one type of referral source, who would it be? Start developing a profile for that ideal referral partner. And then I'd put together a list of 100 of them, which, by the way, given the unlimited amount of resources on the internet right now, doing that is easier than ever. So what I'm about to tell you next is very important. This is your number one priority for your first 90 days. Make 1,000 outbound phone calls in the next 90 days. This may sound like a big number, but it's actually a very small number because I've done 1,000 calls in a month before. But 1,000 calls, 90 days, that's about 20 calls a day working 4 days a week. Now that is very doable and necessary if you're a newer BDO or if you were in the bottom 50% at your last shop. I would actually go a step further and say if you weren't in the top 25% of production in terms of BDOs at your last shop, this is what will get you there. And you want to focus your efforts on high value targets. So what does that mean? Picture it like a Venn diagram. 2 circles. One is your credit box / value proposition, and the other is the broker and the types of projects they work on. You want that middle part where they overlap to be as big as possible. The more a source comes to you and you're able to say yes, the faster you can build your business. A good example is one I learned the hard way. I was just telling you about when I was at my last shop and we were real estate focused, working with business brokers didn't make sense. Well, I learned that the hard way. Because I would try to call on business brokers and ask for certain deals, the ones involving real estate. Okay, well, that's about 10% of what they do. And so I ended up closing 0 from business brokers, and I wasted a lot of energy on that. If you can get COIs to call you and you can say yes at least 75% of the time on their doable deals, I would consider that a high value target. So this means for every deal that they will end up getting done through an SBA loan, you're able to say yes to at least 3 out of 4. And you're able to offer a structure that's competitive, and that to me is a high value target. By the way, I didn't include in the calculation the deals that don't cash flow, the crappy credits, the no cash, the deals that are probably not going to get done anywhere, right now at least. All right, so 1,000 calls in your first 90 days. That is your number one priority. All right, pop quiz. It's day 33 on the job. You know you need to make 20 phone calls that day. You wake up, you check your email, you have one deal in the pipeline, and your underwriter's asking you about it. They've got a list of 5 questions about the deal. What do you do? Trick question. Those calls should have already been made by the time you opened your email. Make the calls your number one priority. All right, it's day 89. You need to make 10 more calls to hit 1,000. You have a deal in closing. It's blowing up. Make the calls. I know how this goes, guys. You open your email, you see an email that you need to respond to. While you're typing the email, you get 3 more emails, and before you know it, it's 5:30 and you didn't make any calls and now it's too late. You might be curious on what to say on these calls maybe. Do you ask for the business? Do you ask for a meeting? We don't have enough time to fully expand on this, but the short answer is if they already worked with you, they may just pick up the phone and want to talk. But if they're a brand new referral source, I would use that call to schedule a Zoom meeting. Some BDOs want to meet in person. I personally think that's inefficient, but it could be fruitful when targeting COIs that are technology averse or really value the face-to-face. Now, as you're executing on these calls, you have to have a marketing plan running in the background. Remember those emails that you wrote before you got there? The library of emails. That library of emails will drip out to these COIs to hammer home your message and to stay top of mind. Same goes for your LinkedIn strategy. If you want to do business with someone and they have no idea who you are, it may take a phone call and a follow-up phone call 2 weeks later, and maybe they actually pause and read that third email blast you sent them, and then you engage with them on LinkedIn, you comment on one of their posts. It takes all these touches for your message to really stick with someone and get them to refer you that next deal. So these first 90 days are all about marketing and building your momentum. I would also decide on one organization to get super involved with. One more thing, you're going to be creating a lot of first impressions with your internal teammates over these first 90 days. Your underwriters, your closers, and your BDAs, for those of you lucky enough to work with some of those, are what makes or breaks your success. And so you have to establish trust and respect early on, very important. So be really mindful of your interactions with your teammates in these first 90 days, and always for that matter, especially when it's a critical conversation, which may involve some sort of disagreement, on deals. Maybe you see things different ways, and you aren't always going to see eye to eye, but knowing how to handle those discussions is absolutely key to your success. All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.